Okay, let me try and get this off of here. This is a pretty new system here that we're just getting used to, so that's why we're playing around here. Okay. So, I think all of you, except if you haven't given us an application for being on our panel, and it's the long application, or you've gone online and done it, we need that application before I can send you your credentials. I know I've sent some of you credentials already with login instructions. There's a couple of people in here that haven't gotten to me yet, that application. What's in it is your social security number, your addresses. What's important is if your address that you want your checks to go to is different from what you want your clients to see, make that note. There's something on the form that says this is my public address, this is the address that can go to the clients. Otherwise, we have some people that give us just their check home address, and the clients are getting their home address. So just kind of make sure that differentiation. I can have both in there. I can have the client address in Defender Data, and I can have your check that you want your home check sent to being your home address or business address. Okay. So you're going to get an email from me if you haven't already. It's going to look like this, and it's going to have your credentials to log in, and this will be your link to the web application, and you're going to have a user ID that's unique. It's going to be 11,300 and whatever, but that's going to be your own user ID for your person only. We can't get into it. Only you and Defender Data JusticeWorks can get into that. So the stuff that you're putting on there, I'll get to those pages, or some of it's going to be confidential only for you to see. So after you get that, you're going to be able to go in and change that awful long password that you have to something else, but click on that. You got to do it in Google, not in Explorer, not in Safari, because there's going to be parts of the program that don't work. So make sure you're uploading it to Google. If you have any problems with that, give me a call. I can walk you through it. Okay, so after you're in, you're going to start getting assignments. And your first assignment, if you haven't gotten one yet, it's going to come from our assignments.org assigner, which is Jill Christ. And it's basically going to give you the name of the client's phone number, what court it's in, who's the judge, the next court date, and what the charge is. You need to accept this as soon as you can. Don't wait. If you're not near your iPad or something like that, and you know you're going to take it, you can always give Jill, you can get to know Jill's phone number, you can give her a call, you can email her. Eventually we are going to have the mobile app. I just talked to our developer again. They're going to be starting all over again with the mobile app. They've been promising us this mobile app for
2 years.
2 years. Been revisited with them, and they're going to be looking at it again. So hopefully we'll get the mobile app. So if you're in court, you have your phone. You'll have an email alert, and you'll have alert on Defender Data that will say you've got an assignment waiting for you. Again, try and answer that as soon as you can, because sometimes we don't have a lot of time to get that filled. We might just get this assignment. You might have court the next day. We have to get it filled right away. So get back to us as soon as you can. And how you're going to do that is you're going to go on Defender Data. You have to accept it. If you don't give Jill a heads up, you still have to accept it through Defender Data, or you're not on the case. You won't be able to open the case if you don't accept it through Defender Data. So we're going to get on to the website here. I'm going to use the right one here. Okay, this is just a fake attorney that I'm putting in here. So you'll have your username, your password. If you forget your password, just click Forget Password. It's going to send you your password to your email. If you want it reset, you can just reset it then. When you get in the first time, it's going to make you change your password to what you want it to change to. So this is what your home screen as an attorney is going to look like. And any cases that you have that you're working on that have not been paid yet are going to be under the open case line. So this person has 3 cases, and so you're going to get, when you get that authorization, it's going to say accept or reject. So when you click one of those, if it's accepted, that's going to stay on your home page then. So we're going to go into this case, and I'm just going to give you a brief outline of each page and some important things to know about it. So when you're in the case, it's going to give you the assignment date, the type of file it is. So if it's I'm gonna go back because I want to pick up a misdemeanor on this one. Most of you are probably going to be starting with misdemeanors. So it's going to say file type misdemeanor. If it's a felony, it's going to say if it's an A, B, C, D, E, what type of felony. It's going to say, it's going to give you the court, the judge, the charges. I'll follow my cursor here. And then some of the information on here, like attorney information, this will be your information, your address. This is where you're going to know your email address. It won't be my email address. It's going to be your email address. This is where you're going to know if this is the address that's going to your client and the phone number that's going to your client. So if you don't want your cell phone number to go to your client, you got to let us know that too. Okay, just your office number if it's different from your cell phone. The client information is down here, their name, and phone number, email, things like that. If they're in custody, that will also be on this screen. And what's important on this screen for the closing information, before you can submit a voucher, you have to have this closing information all completed. Now, we're trying to get people to put the opposing counsel in. We think we have most of the opposing counsel's names in there now. There might not be. If it's not in there, then don't worry about it, but we are trying to track the opposing counsel. Okay, next one is the charges. This should be populated by our intake staff when we get the referral. You'll see what type of charge it is, the date it was filed, and then this part right here is where you need to fill out. If it was a reduced, not an attempt, but if it was reduced after the case at disposition, the status, the disposition of it, and then that date. And again, you cannot, if that's not completed, your voucher is going to be rejected. So we have to have all that information. We also have to have for New York State reporting if it was a jury trial, a non-jury trial, if one of these trials were conducted, you have to put that in there. And finally, all of the sentencing information should be in there too. Okay, any questions so far? I'm going too fast. Just give me a shout. If you want to put your calendar of events in, sometimes you'll see the first one might be put in for you. Further proceedings you'll see, so you know when your next court date is. What's nice about this is if you put your calendar of events in that place right there on that case screen, or I'm sorry, on your home screen. Go back to home screen. On your home screen, your schedule is going to be up here, and then your scheduled events will come up in numerical order by earliest date. Okay. I want to go back to the case tab and talk to you about the report for financial status. Now, yes, ma'am.
Is there a way to export the schedule
to another calendar? They haven't made that yet. They're trying to get that so you can put it into Outlook and other calendars, but it's not there yet. That's a Defender. That's a JusticeWorks. JusticeWorks is who creates this program for us. That hasn't happened yet for us. So hopefully that's coming down with a mobile app. We'll see.
2 years.
2 years from now.
2 years from 2 years from now.
Yes. Okay, go back to your case tab. And I forgot to mention this before. The report of financial status. This is extremely important. We provide counsel for indigent people, but they have to be able to qualify for it. We can't just give it to everybody that comes off the street and says, I qualify, just based on them saying I qualify. We will be audited on this. They do pull up every financial statement that they look at for the cases that we pay to make sure that we made sure that that person really did qualify for it. And there's a level of income that they can't get over or under or whatever. Even if they're incarcerated, we still have to have that financial statement signed. So our suggestion is the first time you meet with that client, you bring that financial statement with you to have them sign it. If they're in jail, wherever they are, have them sign that financial statement with the information that they need to provide on it. And if there's no information, just put an X through it, says they're incarcerated, but they're signing it and you're signing it. Our auditor knows then that they were eligible for it. Most likely we won't pay until we get that financial statement. If for some reason you can't meet with that client, maybe they absconded or they retained after the arraignment, or you had seen them once and they had retained and you still hadn't gotten it, put a note in the notes section, which I'll show you in a minute, to alert us and give us an explanation. It'll get your voucher through faster. If you don't give us an explanation and we don't see a financial statement there, It's gonna hold up your voucher, it's gonna prolong the time that you get paid on that voucher. Any questions on financial statements? Have you shown them the RFS yet? Are you
You
going to?
create the financial affidavit through the vendor data.
Through your document.
So you have to go into the document section.
And I'll do that right now. So you go to the document section and you create the document right here with this little wheel. And you'll find under ECP forms, right, 1.4 is the criminal RFS. So the criminal is different from the family because there's different eligibility requirements for both. So once you've created that, you can go into it, you can print it out, view it, print it out, take it with you, keep it with you with this case.
And it does auto-fill for the client's specific pedigree information, so you just print that out, put it in your file immediately, and the first time you see your client, make sure they answer the questions and you get them to sign it. My method was if they didn't sign it, I didn't do anything more, so they were happy to sign it.
Bless you. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. He was one of our best people with vouchers, so his advice is great advice. His turned around fast because of that.
I needed to get paid.
Okay, the people section. If you're given an investigator for a case that's one of our internal investigators or a social worker for a case, most likely their name is going to populate here, and for sure it's going to populate on the case tab. Most of our misdemeanors, we haven't put a lot of investigators on yet. We have some, but right here in this case team, if there's co-counsel, if you get to a point where you are co-counseling a felony with somebody, it'll be here. The other attorney will be in this. If there's an investigator, their name will be there. If there's a social worker or a legal writer or something like that, that will appear also in this case box.
But don't hesitate to ask for an investigator if you think one would be helpful. To get witness statements or whatever.
Especially now that we've gotten more used to having our in-house investigators. We just started that a year ago. And when you're just entering into something and you're not sure, they've got a lot of experience. They're all coming from a wealth of background in investigations. They're all retired police officers, state troopers, so they know what they're doing. Okay, moving on to your time entries. Your time entries are what is going to drive your voucher. So my suggestion is you keep your time entries going as you're doing them, just because you're not bogged down at the end of that case. You know, you've spent months on this case and then you're going to try and go backwards. It's just easier to be putting these time entries in right now. So we'll just take, and the time entries need to be within the time of the case, from the time that the case was started to the time that the case was closed. They should be within that time period. Okay, so in the arraignment. So we attended the arraignment. Now, another thing that's real important. A misdemeanor gets paid at $60 an hour. A felony, a family court case gets paid at $75. A violation gets paid at $60 an hour. You want to make sure that when you're populating this time entry, that the right dollar amount is coming up. And I say that because when our intake people are getting a lot of intakes coming in at once, they might have the wrong file type. They might have a misdemeanor in there when it's a felony because they haven't gotten to the charge yet that they need to make it a higher felony, to make it a felony. So that time entry is going to be wrong if it's not the correct dollar amount. And what happens is if it gets to the end of your voucher, you submit your voucher, the girls are reviewing the vouchers, they see that it's at the wrong rate, they reject it and they send it back to you. So again, to save yourself time at the end and to get paid faster, just kind of keep an eye on that dollar figure. If it's a misdemeanor, it's going to be 60, violation, it's going to be 60, and then 75 for the felonies and family. So put the event in, and it's a drop down, so it should list events based on the type of file it is. If it's a family court, it's going to list some different events than it is for criminal. If it's longer than normal, like you're spending a whole bunch of time that doesn't seem like it really should, but you want to explain that I had to do this research, whatever, put a description in there for that. Under hours, we pay by tenths, so it's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. It's not 0.25, it's not 0.35, it's 0.123. And make sure you put your decimal point in. If you spent 1.2, make sure it says 1.2, not 12. Okay, pay attention to that because that's one of the things that's happened before. I'm just going to put 1.2 in. So now that you have an entry, after you have all of your entries, then you create your voucher. I'm gonna show us how to create a voucher just based on this one entry. But before we go to the vouchers, I wanna talk about expenses. Expenses are things that maybe you have a social worker that's not in-house, but I think criminal, we're sticking with in-house, so you guys really don't have to worry about that too much. Investigators in-house. What else? Legal writers. If you have a legal writer, if you need a legal writer, you would go to this pre-auth button right here. This is real important. People forget this step. For some reason, attorneys want to go to this step and request their legal writer or whomever through this. It's never going to show up. We won't see it because this is where we actually pay the expense person. So go to the pre-auth, click on pre-auth, ask for what you want. You want a legal writer, you want Kathy Friedman. Put $1. You can put $1,000 in. I'm sure it's not going to be that much, but just for a default, go ahead and put that in. The date that you're requesting it. And that's it. And then you should put a little note here as to why you need it. I need the help. Okay. Then save it and exit. And on our screens here in the administration side, it's going to appear on our home screen for someone to get that authorized for you. After it's authorized, I'm just going to authorize it right now. I'm going to try and authorize it right now.
Like you're in the attorney screen, you can't do that.
I can't.
That's okay.
I'm not in the admin screen, I'm in the attorney screen, so I can't authorize it right now. But say if we did authorize it right now, you will get a note in your notes section saying that your authorization has been approved. So in here, you're going to get a case note from one of us that that authorization has been approved. When that authorization is approved, you're going to find the documents that you need to give to whomever is doing that expense for you. You're going to find those documents that you need to sign, print out and sign in the document section. Now, let's go to creating a voucher. Okay, so now, I'm going to go back to expense. There's one more thing with expense. If you had to have medical records copied and it was whatever, a dollar amount, or if you paid for a process server out of your own pocket first, you then would get reimbursed on your voucher for that with receipts. So say you paid for a server, you would click attorney expense because it's going to be your attorney expense. Your name will be the only one that will populate here then. And then the date the expense happened, the cost of the process server, and then just a brief explanation, service date maybe. I know I spelled that wrong. And then save it. Another good thing about this, one thing you want to remember with this program is continue to hit the refresh button. So it refreshes back into the cloud database wherever it is and it picks up the information it needs to pick up. Okay, now we're going to create a voucher. If you didn't do that expense thing before you created your voucher, it's not going to show up on your voucher. So just remember that needs to be done before you create the voucher. Go to the voucher tab, click new, and only you'll see your name populating. Click your name, click save, and there's your voucher. So $122 because you spent $72 for the arraignment and then $50 for the process server. Check that all out. Now, before you submit that voucher, I need receipts for the payment that you made for the process server. So you're going to add it. You're going to upload it to your machine, add that, browse through your machine to find that file, that receipt, click on it so it stays in the voucher attachments, and then you can submit your voucher. I don't have the receipt in my machine to.
But before you do that, if you go back to your case and then do your closing information.
Oh, right, which I had briefly touched on before. The closing information, this all has to be populated. It's going to bounce back to you if it's not. The charges, if this is not populated, the status date, which is the disposition, the status, the the jury, the non-jury, that's gonna bounce back again. What it's gonna say to you is when you submit your voucher, it's not gonna go to the validated review, it's gonna go to information needed, and it's gonna hang out there until you pay attention to that. So when I click voucher, you're gonna see what I'm saying here. Hopefully I did it right there. Submit voucher, you're gonna agree to everything that you've done was right, that the time that you put in was correct. And there's your voucher. Now it's sitting, waiting to be reviewed, because it's in validated pending review. Make sure it says that. And you'll be able to track where it is. It's the validated pending review is the first step where our people are reviewing it, then it goes to our administrator, then it goes to the judge. When you're on your, and speaking of that, when you're on your time page, you can create notes for each time entry. But when you're doing it from the note page here, this time page here, whatever you put in that note for the time entry, it will be shown on your voucher. So if it's something that you don't want anyone else to see, like the judge or the administrator, don't put it on this page. If you want a note that only you can see and you don't alert anybody else to it, put it on the note page. We can't see a note that you send unless you alert us to one of them. So I'm going to create a voucher. I'm going to create a note right now. And this, if you wanted to correspond with the voucher reviewer or Dan or someone like that on the case, or Yvonne on the case, you go to this place that says case notes, create a new one, say, Dan, I need help with this case. And you tell them what the help would be. Save it. After you save it, you can pick who you want to alert. I'm going to have you alert me right now because Dan would say, why would the heck do you need help with this case, Jennifer? So after you put somebody in there to alert, you can also task them to make sure they did it in another spot. I like to do both because I know that they did it then. So that will show up, and since you alerted somebody, it's going to show up on their screen too, or in the case then. If you don't alert anybody, it's going to be a confidential note to yourself, okay, about the case. That won't show on your voucher, so that won't show. Say, you know, you might want to say, I had a real hard time dealing with the judge or something like that. Can you help me out with that? That could be something that you don't want anyone else to see but Dan, or so put it there. Now, when you put documents in the documents section, we cannot see them. Nobody in administration can see them. That is your confidential file, those documents that you put in. Now, we will create documents for you and put them in. Those are the only ones that we can see. They're working on putting an investigation file, an investigator's file, so you and the investigator, and only the investigator that's on that case, can share information. So if they took pictures of a crime scene and they can upload them to this case file, only you and that investigator can see them. I can't see them, Mark can't see them, Yvonne can't see them, nobody else can see them. So it's very confidential. I know some people are a little leery to do that, but trust me, we cannot see them. We have to, you know, we're upholding the confidentiality, so when I say that we can't see them, we can't. Okay. That RFS. There was a green plus sign there, right here. This is where you would upload that RFS. So you would scan it in to your computer, upload it, attach it, and then it's reviewed. Now, you cannot replace an RFS once you put it in there without contacting Yvonne Banks. Because what happens is we've had people put an RFS in, she reviews it, and they are eligible. And then we've had, before we were able to stop that, they would put another RFS in showing that they weren't eligible, and it would already have been gone, it had already gone through the review process, but it showed that they weren't eligible when we paid you. So if you have to delete the RFS that you put in there originally, you need to contact Yvonne Banks through an alert through that case. And she will delete it so you can upload another one, because only one can be uploaded at a time. Okay, do you have any questions on that? The RFS or uploading that, it's a very important part. Do you have any questions on anything with this? Okay. I'm always available to answer any questions. Rachel Valquich, your attorney liaison, she's always available. Please reach out to us if you're stuck on something, if you're stuck creating a voucher or whatever. We've been working with this system now for 2 years, so we know it like the back of our hands now. So
You will know that your RFS has been properly uploaded when it appears in here.
yeah, you'll
So
see it.
if you haven't done it correctly, it'll remain blank. So when it appears in there, you can actually look at it and make sure that it's been uploaded properly.
And just remember, it's on this page that you're uploading it. If you put it in documents and you say, well, it's in my documents section, we can't see it, okay, so we can't review it. So remember that it's gotta go into that part of it. And with the voucher attachments, if you have a voucher attachment with a receipt, make sure you put it in before you submit the voucher, because that plus sign goes away, okay? That's it. I don't have any questions? Oh, you have one.
So just to be clear, there's no interim billing? The case has to be finished first?
Only in family court do we have interim billing, because some of those cases go on for 5 years. Once a case has been paid to an attorney, that's it for that case. So if it's a bench warrant and you want to get paid on it, we can close the case for you. We'll start another case after that. We don't count the cases, 2 cases for the state, but we will start a new case for you on that. But it'll be a whole new case number and everything.
So when your client goes out on a bench warrant, you ask the judge if you can be relieve of representation, but ask the court to notify you when he's picked up, and they will be picked up on the warrant at some future time. I had one that was out almost 7 years on a bench warrant, but they find them eventually, wherever they are, sometimes Australia.
The only time in family court you're gonna have it happen is with Article 10 cases. Those are the ones that go on forever and ever, and they have distinct times at which you can bill. Right now, you're not gonna be doing Article 10s for a while, but when you do, we'll talk about it.
Any other questions?
Could you your email address please?
Sure. It's hope dot, and I'll spell it KEILMAN @assigned.org. And my extension is 218 also, if anyone calls our 856-8804 number. Anything else? Okay, great.
Thank you.
And if you do have difficulty navigating Defender data, and many people do, especially us older folks who weren't brought up with computers, we're available all the time. We've had oftentimes people come in with their laptops and we walk them through it on their own device so that they can be familiar with it on their own device, especially the upload